Order. Ms. Kinnaman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just looking for a motion with respect to holding the meeting electronically without members of the public present.
So moved.
Moved by Director Pranger, seconded by Director. All in favor? Passes. Thank you.
Next item is approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Clute. Second by
Davidson.
Director Siemens. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
3.1, we have the draft Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Board meeting minutes of January 28th, 2021.
Moved in a seconder.
Moved.
Moved by Director Facio, seconded by, I can only see
Davidson.
4 people on my screen, so.
Davidson.
Director Davidson. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Moving down to reports from board directors.
Are there any reports from the Board of Directors? Hearing none, on to the next.
Next is public question period for items relevant to the agenda. As you know, we request members of the public to send their email submissions if they have any questions, and they have been invited to join the Zoom. Ms. Van Ness, were there any submissions?
We didn't receive any written submissions for questions relevant to the agenda, but I do note that we do have 3 attendees joining us today, a davek, a Jennifer Bamara, and a Samantha Eddy. So if any of those 3 individuals, if you have a question that is relevant to the agenda, and I just note we have had a 4th person join on the line tonight, David Goosen. So if any of those members of the public that wish to ask a question relevant to the agenda, please indicate by raising your hand or unmuting yourself that you have a question. So maybe we'll just give people a moment here, because I notice now we have we have 6 people on the line. We're a popular meeting tonight. So
and just a reminder that this is for the hospital district agenda. Of course, once we are finished with the hospital district, we move into the regular board meeting.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. So I don't see anybody indicating any wish to ask questions relevant to the hospital district agenda. So Ms. Kinnaman, I think we could probably move on.
Thank you very much. So next, Mr. Chair, we'd be looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
Mover in a seconder.
Pranger.
Pranger and Director Stevens. All in favor? Thank you.
Okay, and we will recess the hospital district and move over to the Fraser Valley Regional District Board of Directors. Chair Lum.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all again after that lengthy break without seeing each other. I hope you all had a chance to get dinner. I had 18 pretzels and a can of Sprite for my dinner, so I hope everyone had equally as nutritious a dinner. We'll call the meeting to order, please. First item.
Again, first item is a motion for your consideration with respect to the provincial health order, holding this meeting electronically without members of the public present in the boardroom.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Mercer. All in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
Looking for approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Thank you. That is moved by Director Ross, seconded by Director Clute. Any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
3.1 are the draft Fraser Valley Regional District Board meeting minutes of January 28th, 2021.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Blue, seconded by Director Hamilton. Any errors, omissions, questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item is carried. Next item.
3.2 is the draft Fraser Valley Regional District Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from January 28th, 2021.
Thank you.
Raymond.
By Director Raymond, seconded by Director Stobart. And any questions on these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Item 4 are the committee and commission minutes for information and matters arising. It's items 4.1 through 4.5. Happy to separate any out and answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on any of those 5 items? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item.
5.1 is also an information item. It's the 2021 request for board and committee workshops. As the board is aware, over the past year or so, there have been a number of requests from various committees and board members to hold workshops on a variety of subjects. In meeting with staff, we've determined that we can accommodate most of these requests through the regular course of business in a given meeting, whether that's the committee meeting or the board meeting. There are a few exceptions where we will need to have either a half day or full day workshops, and the proposed schedule is there before you.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman, and thank you, staff, for finding a way to accommodate. I know all of these items are extremely important to the board directors. Any questions on any of the workshop items? Seeing none, let's move to the next item.
6.1, we have the 2021 grant and aid request for Creekside Mills at Cultus Lake, electoral area H. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dixon and seconded by Director Clute. Discussion.
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
Chair, I do support this and what they're to do in the Creekside community, which is part of our area H, is just make it even more user-friendly, healthier for all those that are there and coming to visit and being part of that. So to support them. Its playgrounds are anybody.
Fantastic. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any other comments or questions from board directors? Don't hear any. Ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
7.1 are electoral areas E and H bylaw update project. There is a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. And do I move in a second here? Moved by Director Engar, seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion on any of these items? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
7.2 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Electoral Area D zoning amendment bylaw number 1502 to facilitate a 4-lot rural residential single-family subdivision of 10304 Agassiz Rosedale Highway in electoral area D.
Thank you. And mover and seconder, please.
Move Dickey.
Moved by Director Dickey, seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
There were actually 2 motions, Mr. Chair, so that I'm going to assume that was the first motion, and then there is a second motion.
Oh, very good. Yes, sorry, we're on 7.2. Okay, and mover and a seconder on the second portion of the
Engar
motion.
moved.
Moved by Director Engar, seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
7.3 is zoning amendment bylaw 1594 to rezone 52655 Yale Road in electoral area D to facilitate a future subdivision of 52655 Yale Road and 10159 Carrick's Road.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder. It's
Move Dickey.
Director Dickey, second Director Adamson. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
7.4 is the Fraser Valley Regional District North Bend Sewer System Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1598.
Move Raymond.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Raymond, second by Director Adamson. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
7.5, we have the Fraser Valley Regional District Electoral Area Volunteer Fire Department Establishment and Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1623.
Thank you. This is for EAs. It's moved by Director Adamson, seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
And now we move into item 8, which is the permits. And I think you have a script in front of you.
Thank you. Indeed, I do. So pursuant to Part 14, Division 9 of the Local Government Act, this is the opportunity for the FERD Board to hear from the public regarding the development variance permits listed on the agenda for this meeting. Anyone who believes that their interests are affected by the proposed applications will be given an opportunity to speak. If you have any verbal comments with respect to these development variance permits and you are joining us by Zoom on a computer or smart device, I'd ask you to please press the raise hand function. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be asked to unmute yourself. If you're joining us on Zoom or by phone, please press *9, and this will notify staff that you wish to speak. When you're prompted to unmute yourself, please press *6. Those of you wishing to speak are asked to begin your presentation by providing your name and address, which will be recorded and form part of the official record. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and confine your remarks to the application at hand. Ms. Kinnaman.
8.1, we have development variance permit 2020-26 to vary the maximum height from 12 meters to 15.5 meters for the proposed single-family dwelling at 20718 Edelweiss Drive in Electoral Area C. And I will just draw the board's attention to the 2 pieces of correspondence that were distributed previously.
Thank you. And now is the opportunity for the public. Are there any comments regarding this development variance permit?
So I noticed that we have a couple people on the line here who have raised their hand indicating their wish to speak to item 8.1. So the first person that we have is a Maury. Maury, we see that your hand is raised and we will unmute you and allow you to speak. Oh, I see Maury is muted. And
hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can. Go ahead.
I'll keep it quick. So my name is Maury Poitras. I'm part owner of 20719 Edelweiss Drive, so right across the street from the development. My sister wrote her own letter, but one thing I don't know, because I guess my concern is in regard to, she mentioned that the variance is going to increase the height, which obviously increases the square footage of the property. This specific property is on a hill that is cleared by the snow in the winter because it's obviously a ski mountain. I'm concerned about the fact that my sister mentioned that there's only accommodating for 2 parking spots. So if you're going to increase the variance, it seems like logically they would have to accommodate for more parking spots. That's just my thought. It feels like the 2 parking spots will not be enough. And if people start parking on the street, which there's really is no street parking, then the snow plows cannot clear the road. I've seen that on multiple occasions. And the road becomes pretty much unpassable when anything but a 4-wheel drive vehicle. So that's my only concern. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Maury. Ms. Kinnaman, do we have somebody from planning who could perhaps address some of the concerns around what this height variance does to perhaps in the requirement to increase a parking spot?
Sure, we have Mr. Daneluz, our Director of Planning and Development, on the line.
Thank you. Through the chair, the proposed variance is to increase the maximum allowable height of the dwelling. It's a complicated little property and it slopes to the northeast. It drops across the front of the property and also from front to rear. The drop across the front is about 4.5 meters and then perhaps another 11 meters falling from the highest point of the lot to the lowest. The variance would not increase the number of stories that are permissible under the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw allows a basement plus 2 stories, and that's what's proposed in the building. Now, I think Maury's making a point that perhaps with additional height area, there might be an increased occupancy of the building, and that might give rise to extra parking needs. The zoning bylaw sets out a requirement for 2 parking spaces for a single-family dwelling. We don't have an avenue to require more, but we can certainly raise the issue with the property owner and the builder to see if they might be able to accommodate additional parking on the lot.
Thank you, Graham. And thank you, Maury, for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to this item?
I see 2 additional members. Next up, we have a Tara. Actually, I think we have 3. And so next up, we have Tara.
Thank you, Tara. Good evening.
Hello?
Hi,
Can you
Tara.
hear me?
Yes, we can. And go
Okay.
ahead with your name and address.
I am also an owner of the same property. It's actually my son, Maury. I think what you need to understand is the parking is really hard there. Right now, up at Hemlock Valley, there's probably 20 feet of snow on the top of that road. So it makes parking very important. The snow issue is huge. You can't park on the road. So, and having said that, what else? I've been a long time person up there. Used to be a small family mountain. And what is happening now, we see there's lots of Airbnbs and it's changing. So what, you know, our concern is that it becomes a larger place, more bedrooms, for instance, might be rented out to 10 people during, you know, a weekend, which brings a lot of cars. So if you're going to give the variance and you give more space, they've got more places to rent out. So you got to be clear that this is a single family house and doesn't become an Airbnb. And the last point is it is right across the road from us. And of course, our view will be affected. So we have a vested interest in why would you make it bigger? So I'm just reiterating basically what my daughter wrote and what my son said, and I'll keep it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara. So you have some concerns with your view perhaps being disrupted if the variance is approved, and then you're reiterating the parking challenge.
Yes, and I also think you need to be very attentive to the fact that it's becoming a big industry, and many places are rented short term, and they're rented to, you know, big parties. So if they've got more space to rent out, I'm not saying they will, but this is what we've seen happening. And then there's tons of cars associated with the single family places.
Okay, thank you, Tara. Ms. Kinnaman, I just have a question through to Mr. Daneluz, and that is, although it's not necessarily a factor in this variance application, are there short-term rental rules up in this specific area that prohibit short-term rentals?
Thank you, Chair. Short-term rentals are permitted in most residential lots in Hemlock Valley. It's a ski resort community, and the short-term vacation rentals such as Airbnbs are permitted use in most of the residential lots, including this one. And
because it's been brought up a number of times, what are the on-street parking rules in that area?
As Tara mentioned, Hemlock Valley receives an extraordinary amount of snow, and it tends to be heavy, wet snow. The photos submitted by Tara or one of the other owners of the lot show really well how the roadway becomes restricted by snow storage. Very deep snow. In practical terms, I think, as Tara suggested, on-street parking is impractical, and it would impede snowplows, and it would impede other road users. So in practical terms, I think on-street parking is not realistic, and parking needs need to be accommodated on the individual properties.
Can I just interject there? I believe in the winter, parking on the road is prohibited because the snowplows have to get by. I'm very sure that that is still the case.
Okay, thank you, Tara. And Graham, do you have any comment on that? Is there a specific prohibition that you're aware of for on-street parking?
I defer to the resident who would probably understand the Ministry of Transportation parking restrictions better than I. Of course, regional districts were not responsible for roadways, but after tonight, I'll follow up with the Ministry of Transportation and just confirm whether there are on-street parking prohibitions.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions from a member of the public?
So I see we do have a caller that is called in by phone, last digit 76. If you'd like to unmute yourself using *6 on your phone to ask your question or make your statement.
Thank you, and we'll give the caller an opportunity to ask a question or unmute themselves.
Yes, so it looks like they're moving forward. They're just on mute. Oh, there we go.
Oh, hi. My name is Dan. I'm with Lacey Developments, the builder for the property.
Thank you, Dan. Go ahead.
Yeah, one item I just wanted to address would be for the on-site parking questions. The residence that's drawn there, you have the one parking stall for the home, as well as the design of the driveway. It's been designed for that extension on it, so it's got an extra long drive, which would accommodate adequate extra parking on the site location.
Thank you, Dan. So, sorry, just so I can keep up here. So you have a requirement to provide 2 parking stalls, but you believe you can accommodate more than 2?
We have one dedicated that's for the actual garage parking, and then there's adequate parking on leading up to the driveway as well on the residence.
Okay.
Which has also been noted by the district inspectors.
Okay, very good. Any other comments or questions from members of the public?
So I know we have 2 more people who are interested in making comments. And next up, we have Zoe. If you'd, it looks like, oh, here we go. Zoe, I think you can unmute yourself now.
Hi. Yeah, I guess my mom and my brother have both spoken already. So I'm not sure how much use there is in me reiterating the same points, but I just wanted to kind of, I guess, reiterate, you know, things are changing up there, and that's okay. I think there's development is good. It's going to be good for the valley in general. I just think that the development should be thoughtful, and I'm not saying that this isn't thoughtful, but I do think that there should be special consideration when these things are brought to the board, because if we allow every person to have a variance and build maximum square footage, I just think it's a rural community, and the roads up there are not very well equipped to handle more and more extra traffic. And I know this is just one variance request, and it's maybe not so specific to this variance request, but just in general, as things are brought to the board, I think there should be special thought given to how quickly the development is happening up there, and whether the existing infrastructure can kind of keep up with the pace of the development, because lots are selling up there quite quickly right now, specifically with interest rates being very low, and just the real estate market's going nuts. And I do expect there to be a significant amount of construction to be happening up there within the next couple of years. So that's just more general concerns, and maybe not specific to this lot. I think my concerns with the variance for this specific lot were well addressed by my mom and my brother, but more generally, I just have concerns about you know, development going forward with the way things are going. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zoe. Any questions from board directors?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Director Engar.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the schematic here. It looks to be like a 10-foot increase, and I'm guessing that would accommodate a sort of a loft scenario in a building like that. Is there any conditions the staff would place on square footage then, if this was indeed to handle a new loft?
Mr. Daneluz.
Thank you, Chair. The development permit as drafted, development variance permit as drafted doesn't limit the square footage except that it references the construction plans and requires that the building be built in accordance with the plans.
Thank you.
Thank you. And any other questions from board directors? Director?
Bales.
Okay, I saw Director Adamson and then Director Bales. Go ahead, Director Adamson.
Yes, I'm just wasn't clear with the gentleman who said he represents Lacey. Is it actually 2 parking spots or what's he saying there? That's all. I just want clarification on that.
Thank you. And perhaps the gentleman could clarify.
So I think we have the Dan of Lacey Developments on the phone here.
The question through was, does this accommodate 2 parking spots or is it more than 2 parking spots on site? And while he's getting ready to answer, Director Bales, you're up.
I just wondered if this was referred back to staff, whether they would have time to actually go for a visual drive up there. But it is my understanding that the intention is not to use the bottom slab or floor as residential. It was more to do with the terrain of the mountain that they needed to do that. So, and just, yeah, any comments from staff on that about the possibility of referring it and having another look? And just making sure that it accommodates enough vehicles on the property.
Dan from Lacey.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the property, it accommodates the 1 parking stall inside the dwelling, but there's adequate parking for additional vehicles on the driveway.
Okay, and the question is how many? Does the driveway accommodate 2? Does it accommodate 3 vehicles outside? How many?
2 for sure.
2, so a total of 3 on site.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. And Mr. Daneluz?
And then there was also a question about the dwellings in the basement.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
So it's designed to accommodate for the slope. It's not for living space. It's just due to the steep slope, we have to bring the foundations so much higher to accommodate the terrain of the land.
Okay, so you're not building this. There's a couple of questions from directors. You're not building extra suites or lofts or anything.
No, and with the height, it's kind of the same premise nowadays with the snow load requirements and how strict the engineering has to be for building at Hemlock. It requires such a steep pitch of roof compared to some of the homes that were built back in the 80s. It's a completely different it's a different game now.
Good, Dan, thank you. And Mr. Daneluz, I'm not sure that you need to answer anymore. I guess there was a question whether you need to refer back, but you also referenced that you have the plans in front of you and the variance is in accordance with those plans.
Through the chair, Director Bales had asked about an opportunity to refer back to staff, and I think her intent was that staff could work with the applicant and consider the plans and these comments received from the neighbors, and certainly we could do that. We could perform a site visit, but I think there's further opportunity to work with the owners and the designers to mitigate some of the need for a height variance. Although I think we'd caution that this is a fairly steep property. The slope is relatively complex in that it's both across the building and the depth of the building. And so we anticipate that some height variance is likely to be needed on this lot, but we may be able to work with the owner and the designer to reduce the magnitude of the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Daneluz. Ms. Van Ness, are there any other comments from public?
Yes, so we have Jennifer who wishes to make a comment. Jennifer, you can unmute yourself and address.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Bamara. I'm the homeowner at 20718 Edelweiss Drive. I just wanted to mention that although Dan did mention it, there is room for 3 vehicles on site. On our property, on the 2 in the driveway, 1 inside the garage. And the height variation or the variance that we've requested is to keep a straight roof line from the front to the back because the back does slope down quite substantially whereas in the front, looking at Edelweiss Drive to the top of the roof, we're actually under the requirement, and no variance is required in the front of the property. It's just in the back where the slope skips quite substantially. And I believe it would also be similar to the neighboring property in the front anyways.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for that clarification. Any questions from board directors? Don't hear any. Ms. Van Ness, any other comments from members of the public?
So I see one member of the public wishes to speak again, but before we,
Just somebody who's already spoken?
yeah. Is there
Okay.
anybody else that wishes, please indicate to raise your hand, but it does not appear so. So Zoe, you can go ahead and address the board again.
Go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, I'm not an engineer. I understand this lot's difficult to build on. A variance probably is required to build on the lot. Well, it very likely is. So that is what it is. I'm just wondering, in terms of the bylaw, like there's not a huge, like a difference between what, so it says 12 meters or 2 stories, whatever is less, but a basement is also allowed, which isn't specifically stated. I'm also, you know, I've never really read bylaws before. This is like my first time reading bylaws, so maybe I just need some instruction on how to read them better, or where to look for the right definitions. But I'm just wondering, what is the definition of a basement in terms of a bylaw? Because when I think of our basement, and, you know, even up in the valley or just in general, it's not really like, you know, a nice living space. And when I think of the places in the valley, they're not, basements are not, you know, they're part of the structure. It's like the cement part of the structure, which I can kind of see that it wouldn't really make sense on this particular lot to do that, because essentially it looks like the cement is substituting an infill, which would be the alternative. But I think because of the river there, it's not ideal to do an infill. So I'm just, I guess, wondering more generally, what is the definition of the basement under the bylaw? Because I think, I don't know, again, I'm not an engineer, so maybe it would just be for this particular lot that there's kind of that issue, because the basement level is below the road. And most properties are building, you know, from the road above. So the basement is basically at the road level, and then they're building, you know, floors above that. So is a basement a habitable area? Is it just, you know, is it just part of the structure? Like the bylaw says 2 stories or 12 meters, but a basement's also included in there. Is a basement a livable area? I'm just wondering more from my own personal understanding, and maybe just for going forward again with the board when these kind of variances come up. I guess the basement could add additionally, again, going back to just kind of increasing all the occupancy of these builds. I understand that when people are building, they want to, you know, maximizing the square footage is ideal when you're building something, because, you know, it's better value for the person that's building it. But maybe there just needs to be a bit better definition of what is allowable for like a living space area.
Yeah, Zoe, why don't I get some answers for you right now? I'm going to jump in and get Graham.
I'm rambling on. Yeah, go ahead.
No problem. I just think we've got the expert on the line, so let's see if he can enlighten you.
Thank you, Chair. I will do my best. And Zoe, I think you've largely worked it out on your own here. So well done, I'd say. There's a lot of complication here, I might say, in the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw defines basement, it's defined term, and it also defines story. A basement is defined as the portion of a building that's between 2 floor levels, the lower of which is placed more than 0.6 meters, but less than 1.2 meters below the finished grade outside ground level at the nearest outside wall of the building, and it excludes a cellar. So the elevation is relevant to the elevation of the basement floor in relation to the exterior grade is relevant. And then the bylaw goes on to define story. Bear with me a moment here while I flip to that section of the zoning bylaw. Story means the space between a floor level and the ceiling directly above it, whether or not such space extends throughout the lot coverage of the building concerned, where the floor level at any point is not more than 0.6 meters below the highest finished ground elevation located within 3 meters of the nearest outside wall of the building, measured at right angles to such outside wall. So there's the complication that I mentioned in the definition of these terms. So we took a close look at what's allowed in the zoning bylaw and these definitions, and the home as proposed is allowed to have the basement plus 2 stories. It's got to live within that maximum height of 12 meters, and that height. One of the challenges here is that we measure that height from the lowest point of the lot adjacent to the structure. So given that the lot drops over 11 meters from the highest part to the lowest part, we're measuring height at a very low part of the lot, and that's the challenge here. And if we look in the staff report, we've pointed out that the building isn't designed to minimize the magnitude of the height variance. And if it's the pleasure of the board, we can certainly work with the designer and the lot owner to see if we can reduce the magnitude of the variance needed here.
Thank you, Graham. And Zoe, I don't know if that clarified things or just made it a little bit more difficult. I know I don't want you to feel bad because 10 years on council and I still need a lot of help when reading bylaws. So don't feel bad, but Graham, thank you for the clarification. Do we have enough information here to make a decision? Ms. Van Ness, do we have any more comments from the public?
We do have one more second speaker. Tara would like to wishes to speak.
Okay, very good. Tara, go ahead. Tara, can you, if you can hear me, you might
unmute.
Yep, there we go.
You're good. Okay, this is actually Jeffrey Poitras. I also live at 20719 across the road. I've seen 2 other structures constructed on that slope, and I also completely renovated our place, which was shifted by the snow weight. So I really appreciate the need to keep the pitch of the roof. No question about that. But the point was made that the actual elevation of the house at the front of the lot will be the same as the 2 structures that are up a hill from there. And I think that's why a site visit would be really useful if the staff got there, and especially if they went right now and they looked to see what was going on with the snow. And they're professionals. They do this as a living, and they can make an on-site decision. I think this is a really challenging development here. And we don't want, and personally, I don't want to see the people that are trying to develop it put at any big disadvantage. But similarly, we don't want to see them build a structure there that isn't suitable for the lot for the site. So I think the suggestion here that somebody go up and have a look-see, who's really familiar, so they can familiarize themselves, particularly right now, because the amount of snow they have right now is outrageous. So anyway, that's just the bylaw thing. I can appreciate there's a lot of detail here, et cetera, et cetera. But in the end, we want to get a structure built there that's sort of the best for that lot. We don't disadvantage the people that are trying to build there, but they don't put a structure there that really is not suited for the actual site that they're trying to put in terms of traffic and snow removal and all the other stuff that goes on up there. Because it's a very unique type of property that they're trying to build on here. And a little bit of extra effort at this point in time may actually minimize problems that are downstream. And that's really all I wanted to say. So, and I appreciate your time on this. I realize it's going on and on and on, and variances don't usually take this much time, but it's an unusual situation here. So thanks for your effort.
Yeah, no worries. And I appreciate your comments there, Jeffrey. And any questions from the board? Don't hear any. Ms. Van Ness, are we?
So we have one more person who would like to speak. Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to indicate that from the road from Edelweiss Drive to the top of the building will be 25.5 feet, which is within line with the rest of the houses. Again, the 51 feet that the variance indicates is in the back of the house from the bottom of the hill. It's
So it will maintain the similar form and character as some of the other neighbors on that street.
correct. The house beside us actually has the same issue with about 9 or 10 feet of unused space before they actually start their basement floor.
Right. Jennifer, you could probably help me out a little bit here and help the rest of the board out. It seems like the request for the height variance has triggered more of a discussion, more based on occupancy and the use of the building, your home. We've got a lot of questions here about having 10, 20 people come and rent it as an Airbnb. Is that what this is going to be, an Airbnb for large parties to rent?
No, the purpose of the cabin is to have a vacation home for our family. So it's myself, my husband, and our 3 children.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate your comments. Ms. Van Ness, back to you.
Okay, it looks like there is nobody else indicating that they'd wish to speak on this matter. So
Thank you. And Director Bales.
Yep, I would like to just make another comment to staff. I'm not sure whether referring it back for 1 month and giving it time to have an on-site check, would that slow things up too much, especially considering the time of year? And just want to know whether that would make it, whether the delay would harm anything on site, maybe to the builder as well.
Mr. Daneluz, there a question around referring it back to staff for a site visit. Do you feel like you would be able to obtain, or your staff would be able to obtain, additional information in a site visit that you currently don't have from looking at the drawings in front of you?
Thank you, Chair. Site visits are always helpful, and it's a relatively routine piece for us. I couldn't say whether we performed a site visit in this case or not, but we'd be pleased to go up and have a look, and pleased to have further discussions with the owner and see what the opportunities are.
Thank you. So if that were the case, it sounds like Director Bales, they could do that. I guess just a clarification, Ms. Kinnaman, that puts this application back in front of this board and we do this all over again. Is that what as fun as this was, is that the case?
That's correct. A referral back would mean that this would come back presumably next month.
Okay. And so we don't have any more comments from the public. We don't have any more comments from board directors, or do we? I said Director Lowen.
I move we send it back to
sorry,
staff.
Director Adamson. I've got Director Lowen.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I understand this is for EAs only, but I'd like to just offer my opinion, and that is, time is money when it comes to developers and builders. I certainly hope that if this is put off for another month, that the benefit is great enough to justify doing so. It seems to me from whatever I've heard and read that this is a unique piece of property. We've heard that the profile would be no different than neighboring homes. I tend to I believe and trust the engineers, and I would think that a conversation between staff and the builders could proceed even after this board approves it. I just would like the board to consider that when they put things off for a month, it can be expensive. And unless it's worth it, we should really be hesitant not to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lowen. And so just to summarize, I guess I share some of those. I guess I share the concern that I'm not certain that we'll end up at a different conclusion, even after a site visit or seeing that in a month. And I know how busy Mr. Daneluz and his team is, but I will certainly wait to see what the electoral area directors intend to do. And Director Adamson, you had a motion?
Yeah, let me find, oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to move this referred back to staff.
Okay, is there a seconder on referral and it's referred to staff for a site visit, is that correct?
Site visit, talk to them more. It's more information.
Okay.
Davidson, second.
Okay, it's seconded by Director Davidson. Comments on this, Director Bales?
I just wanted to be reassured. I know there's been some problems up in Hemlock this year due to the huge amount of snow, and that does happen in quite a few years, and then other years you get no snow. So I know that access has been a problem, and I know that this property is also difficult due to terrain and the creek and having to stay in line with the creek levels and things like that. So I do know that there has been problems, but due to the concerns of neighbors, I would just like to make sure that everything is as it should be, as far as having enough space for the amount of snow and parking, basically.
Okay, I just want to point out that this property, and I just want to be clear, because I want to be clear in the reason we're referring this. The variance that's before us is not a variance to reduce parking requirements. It's a variance on the height of the building.
Yeah.
A bunch of other issues have been brought up related to the height of the building. I heard what I thought was relative satisfaction from board directors that this wasn't going to be increased occupancy or increased demand on parking. So I want to be clear, this is referred to I heard referred back for staff to have a site visit to look at the site, but this is being referred back on the height variance. So, Director Raymond, you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After listening to everything that's been going on, it sounds to me like the owners and the contractor that is building this have met all the requirements that are required by the regional district. So I will be opposed to referring this back to the board. Thank you.
Okay. And
Just Dixon.
Yeah, Director Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you. If I could just have some clarification, probably from Mr. Daneluz, because when I'm looking at the drawing, is the actual height variant the concern the part of the back, whereas the height on the front is there? That's not wouldn't be requiring an actual variance. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, through the chair. As the property owner mentioned, the height on the front face, the face of the building that faces the road is about 25 feet, or I'll say about 8 meters. That's I would say in keeping with the streetscape, and certainly that side of the building is well within the maximum height limit of 12 meters. We run into a challenge here because the property steeply drops to the back of the lot, and the way height is defined in our zoning bylaw requires us to measure the height from the peak of the roof to the very lowest grade of lot adjacent to the building. And so that's where we find that measurement is about 15 meters from the roof peak to the lowest point. Now, the applicants could look at placing fill on the property, and there's some other construction techniques that builders commonly use to address these kinds of issues. In this case, the property owners don't seem to want to place fill. They've got a commitment, I think, to maintaining the natural topography of the site, and they're trying to work with it. That said, I do think there's some compromises that could be made in the building design if if the board wishes to direct us to go and work with the applicant. But I again caution that I suspect we're looking at a height variance either way, and the opportunity, if there is one, is to reduce the magnitude of the variance needed.
Okay, and just if I may have one quick follow-up, there's no neighbors at the back, is that true?
Yes.
Onto a creek, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? This is for EAs on referral. All in favor? And opposed?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just have members who are opposed just verbally? It just makes it a little bit easier on Zoom if you just verbally speak up.
Dixon.
Sure, I've got Dixon, Raymond,
Stobart,
Engar. Dixon, Raymond, Stobart, Engar, and that's it. So is that a 4-all tie?
Yeah, so that fails.
Defeated? Okay, so the motion to refer is defeated. Is there another motion? What is the board's wishes? So it will be either to defeat the variance or to approve the recommendation.
Move to approve the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second, Angar.
Second by Director Engar. Discussion.
If I, may I?
Yeah,
please?
go ahead, Director Engar.
My thoughts are that if it's in keeping with the current view line from the road, then I don't see a problem with it. I support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Davidson?
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Yeah, so one of the things that really jumped out at me in learning this role that really resonated with me is the comment that you need to be making your decision making for like three generations in advance. And it sounds like there are alternate construction approaches that could be explored. And I personally believe it's worthwhile taking that time to get it right. So I will be opposing the variance permit on that ground.
Okay, thank you. And Director Dickey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I voted in favor of referring back to staff to give a chance for the electoral area director's wishes to be accommodated. However, in this case, where it's a question of refusing the variance or approving it, I will vote in favor of approval.
Thank you. Other comments from EA directors? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed?
Davidson.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I see Director Davidson and Director Adamson in.
They're opposed. That's right. And so I have, by my count, that's 6-2. And the motion is carries. Thank you. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 8.2, we have development variance permit 2021-01 to reduce the rear lot line setback and to vary the definition of height to allow for a 3-story single-family home at 20903 Snowflake Crescent in Area C.
Thank you. And now would be the opportunity for any members of the public to address this item. Ms. Van Ness.
So I see that we have we do have members of the public on the line, and we have a Samantha who has her hand raised, so she can go ahead and unmute herself and address the board.
Evening, Samantha.
Hi, it was actually just in relation to the previous application.
Yeah, we've actually.
Yes, so.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I had my hand up before, but it's okay. It appears to have gone through, so no further comment.
Thank you, Samantha. Ms. Van Ness, any other members of the public?
At this point, we do have 5 members of the public on the Zoom call. I just ask one more time if anybody is interested in addressing the board that they can raise their hand. And it does not appear that there's anybody that wishes. Oh, we do have one person, a Dave. If you'd wish to address the board, you can unmute yourself.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? I'm just, my name is Dave Cron. I'm one of the engineers on the project for the proposed resident tenant. I just want to explain, this is a building that was built some time ago, and it burnt down 6 years ago. And what we're doing is just really replacing what was there, except all we're doing is we're meeting some of the reduced setbacks to the rear and to the north. And the north property above us is higher, which is what caused the fire in the first place. And we're just reducing that and reducing the side yard overhangs and eaves to match what's needed. And we do have a crawl space instead of a basement, and instead of having a slab on grade, we just now have a 1.2 meter space between the underside of joist to the slab on grade on the basement in the downstairs. So it's a main floor loft and main floor, upper floor with loft. So.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for that clarification. Any questions through to our member of the public?
Bales?
Go ahead, Director Bales.
Hi, Dave. This is, I was assured by staff that there would be lots of room for snow shedding and on-site parking, even with the setbacks, so, or with a variance. So would you confirm that?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, basically the snow shedding that we have, we've actually created more room on both the east and west sides with the retaining wall. Where the retaining wall was previous with the previous residence, we've moved it to the property line, which gives better snow shedding capacities and ability to get rid of the snow that we have off the roof of this house. Before, in the old residence, we never had that ability, so snow shedding was a problem. In this case here, we've actually moved the retaining wall to give us that better snow shedding capability and basically storage.
Great, thanks for your comments.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from board directors? Seeing none, directors or Ms. Van Ness, are there any other comments from the public?
At this point, it does not appear, but maybe just call again here if anybody has any comments they'd like to make, to raise their hand. And it does not appear so.
Great. What's the board's wishes?
Move the recommendation, Raymond.
Second, or yeah.
Okay, it's moved by Director Stobart, second by Director Bales. And any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
8.3, we have development variance permit 2021-02 to vary the setback requirement from a highway for a proposed single-family dwelling at 20920 Snowflake Crescent in Area C.
Thank you. And Ms. Van Ness.
So we still have 5 members of the public on the phone with us or on Zoom. If any members of the public would like to address the board, please raise your hand. And it looks like at this point that there's nobody raising their hand to speak to this matter.
Thank you. Directors, it's the board's wishes. This is EA's again.
Move Dickey.
Second, Bales.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dickey, seconded by Director Bales. Any other comments on this file? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Thank you. Next item.
Mr. Chair, now we move down to 9.1, which is Sunshine Valley Transfer Station Operation Agreement Modification. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. This is for the whole board. I need a mover and a seconder.
Move.
Moved by Director Adamson, seconded by Director Dixon. Any discussion? Let's see, Director Adamson.
Adamson. Yep. Yeah, thanks for putting this together, staff. I understand it's a 2-year extension. When the 2 years is coming up to an end, I would like to actually test a market, if that's okay. But these guys are doing a great job, but just every once in a while you got to test a market. So I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adamson. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
9.2 is Area B curbside garbage collection, GFL agreement extension.
Thank you. Then
Move.
Seconder. It's moved by Director Adamson, seconded by Director Raymond. Discussion.
Adamson,
Go ahead, Director Adamson.
I'd like to make the same statement here. We're happy with what the guys are providing the service. As far as I hear, the customers are happy. But when it comes for renewal, or I would like to test the market, because I've had some people ask me when it's coming due. Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Director Adamson. Any other comments from board? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Director Bales, was there a comment there? And I just called the question.
I was just gonna say that there needs to be a good amount of advance time in order to get that done, as Director Anderson is requesting. So can't leave things till the last minute. So.
Great, thank you, Director Bales. The next item, Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 10.1 is the 2020 FBRD Social and Affordable Housing Inventory Update. There is a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Clute. Discussion.
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
I just want to comment that I really appreciate seeing this all put together in one document, one package, and was a little surprised at just how many, what's out there and what's available. And so it looks like it might have been part of the work of Miss Geddert. So thanks for that. And I appreciate having it all in one document.
Great. Thank you for the comments, Director Dixon. Director Lowen.
Thank you, Chair. Just pardon me if I've missed it, but I see these stats on the number of the increase in shelter beds, et cetera, since 2017. Is there a stat here I missed that also gives the percentage increase in homelessness since 2017 through the staff?
Through the chair, we don't have it in this document, but that would be in the homelessness report that was completed several months ago.
You don't know offhand, just roughly?
Yeah, off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
But we have been sharing this information with staff, and we are going to be doing some further work with some of the homelessness data going forward. We're just sort of having to set up a meeting with staff to talk about it a bit more.
I think a number of municipalities have point in time counts that are coming up too. So they've got some counts that are coming up, I believe, this year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Director Clute.
Thank you. I just also wanted to express my appreciation for the way this was presented. It's simple to read. It's got great information. It's not super in depth, but it gives all the facts that we need. So just a word of thanks to staff on that.
Thank you, Director Clute. Any other comments or questions from board directors? Hearing none. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
At 10.2, we have request for FBRD to initiate the zoning amendment for 5 privately owned properties adjacent to Coquihalla River Provincial Park in electoral area B.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder.
I'll move it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Adamson, seconded by Director Raymond. Discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff for the work on this. It's been apparently a long time coming. I think that it's the right thing to do, and to thank staff for all the hard work.
Great. Thank you, Director Adamson. Any other comments from board directors? Seeing none, ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
10.3 are changes to emergency response cost compensation and EMBC's finance guide for local authorities and First Nations. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. That is moved by Director Stobart and seconded by Director Dixon. Discussion.
Mercer.
Go ahead, Director Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. We learned recently that EMBC, the ambulance service in particular, was beginning to charge in our area Fraser Health for wait times with mental health patients at the hospital. And I still haven't been able to get a straight answer as to where those funds go to, assumably that they're received. Do we have any information on that, or do you know?
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. Although, and I recall having this conversation, and I know Ms. Kinnaman, you and I may or may not have spoken about this, but it was, I think it was the PHSA, the Provincial Health Authority, that was perhaps involved in this, in the ambulance service. And I think it might be separate from EMBC, but still a very...
Yeah, my mistake, I'm sorry, yeah.
No, but it is still an item of concern, and perhaps we can loop back and have the conversation on it.
I had heard just at Chilliwack Hospital, and that doesn't include the other ones in the district, that a monthly bill was in terms of, I heard $60,000. They're starting to bill them for unnecessary wait times. And I just have, I wonder how it fits in with the contract, and if and when that money is being paid, how is it replicated, or how is it used within the contract structure?
We'll certainly do some research on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. Any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, ready for the question? All in favor?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. I just wanted to say that I used to go to the hospital board meeting in Mission in the late 90s, and even back then the fact that the ambulance has to stay with patients if there's nobody to take over has been a huge issue, and they talked about the need to resolve it, and it's still 2 decades later, it's still not resolved, and there's still not enough help for it. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. And perhaps a referral over to the hospital board would be appropriate on this item. I don't know that we need a formal referral, but probably something Chair Raymond has heard the discussion happening tonight, and could take up the mantle on this one. Any other questions or comments?
No, I can certainly fill in some information. I sit on a collaborative services with the hospital, and I was involved in a meeting last night. So I will maybe share some information with either Councillor Mercer or Director Mercer or Director Raymond. So I will pass information along.
Sure. Great. Okay. No other questions on this item. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next item is 10.4. We have the COVID-19 Safe Restart funding for local governments. There are 2 motions for your consideration.
Thank you. And on the first motion, do we have a mover and a seconder?
Move Dickey.
Moved by Director Dickey and second
Engar.
Director Engar. Discussion?
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The funding allocation difference on this program between municipalities and the electoral areas can only be termed egregious, I think. It's common where the electoral areas, the residents per capita were awarded $8 per person. It's common in the municipalities for a $400 allocation per person to have been allocated. So the people in our communities pay the same rate of income tax to the province and the federal government. It's only fair that we advocate for something closer to parity when these benefit programs are rolled out. So that's why we have asked to send this letter off to the provincial government.
Thank you, Director Dickey, and I appreciate the work that the electoral area directors have done on this item. Any other comments or questions?
Engar.
Go ahead, Director Engar.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I completely support Director Dickey's words there, and excellent letter by staff, and very concise and to the point. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Engar. Other comments? Director Raymond, you're unmuted. Did you have any other? Nope, you're good.
Bales.
Go ahead, Director Bales.
Yeah, likewise, I totally support this, and like we've mentioned in past meetings, during a lot of the nicer months, we do get the population of the city out to our areas. So it is a huge problem administrating and just cleaning up and just there's a lot of extra expenses. And I've had a lot of comments from the public about it. So we could use some help.
Great. Thank you, Director Bales. Any other comments from board directors? Go ahead, Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe when we had our, I think it was at the East meeting, we would discuss some of the concerns around those of us that have community halls and whether or not the Safe Restart funding would be able to be used for that. And I'm just mentioning that again tonight because I believe that was, we're going to try to get some clarification around that, because I know certainly in Area H, our little hall is struggling to stay afloat because we can't rent it, and that's one of our big incomes. So I'm just, I guess, putting that out there again. Thank you.
Through the chair to Director Dixon, in motion number 2, you will note that it references providing a report back to East in March, and those kinds of issues will be discussed at that time.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from board directors? Hearing none, this is on motion number 1. All in favor? Opposed, if any. Item carries. And on motion number 2, do we have a mover and a seconder? It's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Crawford. Any discussion on this item? No, just again, thank staff for committing to bring back these items. I know it was an unexpected kind of gift from the province, some of this Safe Restart funding, and it came with some strings attached to it. And I know that Ms. Lounsborough and yourself, Ms. Kinnaman, and the finance team are working hard and continue to work hard to ensure that we're following all the rules set out by the province when they provided some of this funding. But nonetheless, I think it was important to hear the concerns from the electoral area directors and to bring those forward under my signature to the province. And I look forward to staff being able to be creative and bring something back to the EAs. And with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
12.1 is an information item. It's the Invasive Weed Control Program 2020 summary and 2021 plan. Staff are available to answer any questions that the board may have about the program.
Thank you. Any questions on this information item? Director Adamson, was that a question?
Yeah, it's kind of, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, no, it's great. I read recently somewhere that there's a grant for endangered weeds that it's just was released. I don't know if the staff was aware of that. And with Trans Mountain working in Laidlaw, there's a lot of ragweed, tansy ragweed. And so there was concerns about it being moved around Laidlaw. So anybody can help me with that, that'd be great.
Sure. Through the chair to Director Adamson, I believe that the funding that the announcement that you saw was being provided directly to the Invasive Species Council, but I do believe that Mr. Lance Lilly is on the line and he could probably speak better to that one.
Thank you. And through the chair, yes, Jennifer is definitely right. The funding, I think the $12 million from the province went directly to the Provincial Invasive Species Council, and then it did get funneled down to the individual regions where there's like locally there's a Fraser Valley Invasive Species Society, and I believe they are getting a portion of it, so it will go towards some control in the FERD. It's primarily earmarked for job training, I believe, but it's still good news. It doesn't really go through the FERD, but it's still good news for invasive weed control in the region. With regards to Trans Mountain, I do recall in their original application requiring invasive weed containment and management strategies to be approved by the province before they move forward. And so I believe they do have a management plan. I'm not totally familiar with what it says around Tansy though.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Director Bales.
Yeah, and through to Mr. Lilly, isn't Moti responsible for a lot of the weeds along the highway? I'm not sure if they can keep up, but I see a lot of tansy and Dudney and places like that. But when it is along the highway, does the Invasive Weed Council still do the work on it, or do they leave it to Moti?
Through the chair. Yes, you are correct. All invasive weeds that are along the highway, numbered highways, are the responsibility of Moti. Moti is also responsible for weed control along the roads in the electoral areas. But you're right, they can't necessarily keep up with it, and that's where they have priorities, and so they do some treatments, and then in areas where they have limited funding in some of the electoral areas, that is where we can help to contribute. They do currently contract to the Invasive Species Council to do the work. So currently along the highways and in the electoral areas, both us and Moti are using the same contractor for control. So it really helps to streamline the process.
Director Clute?
It's okay. That's kind of been answered in one of the past comments. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on this information item? Hearing none, next item.
Next item is 12.2. We have the Rock Fall event at Twig Terrace in Sunshine Valley in Electoral Area B. Staff are happy to answer any questions about that one.
Thank you. Again, information items. Any questions from board directors? Hearing none, next item.
Next item is 12.3. We have a minor superficial landslide at Mount Breckenridge, Harrison Lake in Electoral Area C. And again, another item just in an effort to draw the board's attention to some of the emergency management calls that are received by our staff.
Thank you. Questions or comments from staff? Director Facio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reading some of the background in regards to this, I know many years ago there was a survey done of Mount Breckenridge, but nothing's happened so far. But I'm rather concerned in the comments from the other agencies like EMBC for future region-wide exercise, running exercise involving multiple jurisdictions and a short notice mass evacuation from a community with limited egress would benefit all involved, including residents and tourism operators. In the event of this potential magnitude, as best practice, you have some mechanism of monitoring and early warning systems. Now, funding was discussed, and there seems to be a lack of options to address funding the type of monitoring and early warning systems. So, and then the conclusion is that FBIT staff have the responsibility to ensure evacuations occur in other areas around the lake. An event of this potential magnitude would require region-wide collaboration. And I think this is where it's important that we should have a region-wide collaboration, because you can't put a gate across the beach in Harrison and say, well, we're not under electoral area C. It involves all of us. If, God forbid, an event like this would happen. So I would see some type of collaboration between the regional district, the village, and the other levels of government to discuss this further and get the other levels of government to come up with funding for early warning systems or anything else that would help the public in case of a catastrophe like this. Thank you.
Good comments, Director Facio. Director Pranger, you have a
yes, please. The District of Kent and the Village of Harrison Hot Springs have been working on an emergency exit route from Harrison through to the Hague Highway for the last, Director Fascio, is it 30 years?
Pretty close, Director.
That is one of the mitigation issues that we could definitely use support with the province. It doesn't address the particular issue, but it does mitigate and allow us some safety measures for the Village of Harrison Hot Springs and anyone who is up in that area north of in the Sasquatch Park area and Rockwell Drive.
Thank you, Director Pranger. Director Fascio, do you have one more?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would just a suggestion? We have a very we have our MLA Kelly Padden, who's very had a meeting with her yesterday. She's very interested in getting to know all the problems of our area and very willing to help in any way she can. And whether that's one way to start this this meeting, or whether our staff and the Kent and Harrison staff want to deal with this and arrange a collaboration meeting with other levels of government, I'll leave that out there for ideas.
Thank you. Lots of good feedback on this item, Ms. Kinnaman, and I know we've got our emergency management staff on the line who have benefited from hearing some of the information provided by directors tonight. So I'll look to them to facilitate moving forward based on some of the feedback they've heard.
Thank you.
Sure. I think, Mr. Chair, one of the key benefits of emergency management coordinators and program coordinators throughout the province is that they're pretty connected and they're pretty good at organizing and collaborating on issues. And so I'm certain that Ms. College and Mr. Daneluz will continue to work with the appropriate folks on this one.
Thank you for allowing us the time to bring that up.
No problem, Director Pranger. Glad that you guys did bring this up. Next item, please.
13.1 is just an information item, the Fraser Basin Council update, February 2020.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Hearing none, seeing none. Next item.
Next item is reports by staff, and this is my favorite part of the night so far. I am very pleased for those of you who did not see the news this morning that the Fraser Valley Regional District was the recipient, the successful applicant in the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, which was also called SARIP, under the Destination Development Stream. So the FVRD's Lakeside Trail project in Electoral Area H is one of 54 projects that received funding, and we will be receiving $440,475 towards that project. And that project was already contemplated in work plans, so that's really great news for our organization.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. And any other reports from staff?
No, so just moving to reports by board directors.
Okay.
Thank you. And board directors, did I hear Director Popov?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lum. I was on a call with Sylvie and with Peter last night with the collaborative services, talking about the vaccination plan locally. And just want to I don't know if Sylvie and Peter, if you want to maybe chime in. There were some issues about there may not be a vaccination location in Agassiz or in Hope, but I'm sure Fraser Health will work on that. But the plan here in Chilliwack is a it is actually a massive one. 2 locations with getting as many folks, stabbed in their arms as quickly as we can. But the problem there is the province still hasn't laid out a actual date. The March 15th date has been floating around, but Petra Party, who's the ED of the Chalk Hospital, she could not confirm that. But just I don't know, Peter and Sylvia, if you want to maybe chime in a little bit. I know your communities weren't listed, which would make it a logistical nightmare to get people down here. But just want to bring people to up to speed on what's coming down the pipe with vaccination. So I'll leave it open for them.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Director Pranger.
Yes, thank you for raising that. The logistics for this are all in the hands of the province. Even Petra Party, who is in charge of this, can't give us any dates or where the locations will be, or whether Agassiz, Harrison, and Hope will get a location. We have arranged for a location, but and that would be very effective at the Ag Hall. It's very accommodating for such an event. And it would be a massive nightmare if we had to transport a lot, especially the first wave, which is over 80, all to Chilliwack for vaccinations. I know Peter and Director Rob and Director Facio also have the same issue.
So a couple of concerns being brought up, and I think, again, having the benefit of the chair of the hospital board online here and hearing some of these health-related, hospital-related, vaccine-related concerns, perhaps he could follow up with some of these directors and staff and perhaps do some clarification with the province in his next meetings with Fraser Health.
Absolutely. We'll put it on the list.
And if just for clarification, I think we have Director Facio and myself have both been in contact with MLA Patton in the meantime to help have her advocate for us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, Director Mercer, go ahead.
Thank you. And just to add to that discussion, if you might, today the US celebrated 50 million vaccinations. And if you do the math, that's about 1 in every 6.5 people. I know that's oversimplifying the math, but that's where they are. And our country is still trying to figure out where we're going to do them. And I think it's worthy that that's pointed out both to our province and anybody else who will listen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
And information sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Popo.
No, just the information is great to hear, Director Mercer, but I don't want to beat Fraser Health up, but I certainly believe that they are lagging behind, but it was more of a information piece that I wanted to put out there. Just this is coming, and I can sort of feel that their plan is going to be a big plan. So transportation is going to be a big, huge issue on this. So just want to bring you up to scope on this, and as I get more information, I will certainly share with Director Raymond and whoever wants to hear. But this came out of the meeting last night that I had, and I just wanted to share a little bit of information.
Great. Well, Director Raymond, maybe I'll leave it up to you to loop in with the other directors and any other directors who may have hospital district related or vaccine related concerns. I'm not trying to shirk responsibilities here, but certainly these, in my mind, would fall more under Chair Raymond's portfolio than mine, and he would be far more capable to deal with Fraser Health and far more positioned to deal with Fraser Health and his ongoing discussions with them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And it is a concern as what is happening in the east end of the valley as well. and finding out a little more about that and putting some pressure on maybe to get some answers for it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I see Director Facio and Director Rob. Director Facio, go ahead.
Just a quick, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to back up on what Director Pranger just said, it's made it a very important issue when contacted our MLA, the importance of having a vaccination area, whether it be in Agassiz or in Harrison or both, and of course in Hope as well, because it would be trying to get people who unfortunately maybe don't have transportation, maybe don't have family in the older age group, and trying to transport them to Chilliwack. It may need transportation, and whether the municipalities would have to pay for this, I don't really know, but made it very clear that this is a very important issue. And I know we're not going to get the answers probably till Monday, but the MLA said she would look into it and get back to us. So it's really in their hands, and we hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Rob, go ahead.
Just a quick comment to add to the conversation as well. I just want to make it clear, it's not a Fraser Health issue. It's the ministry that's giving the direction to Fraser Health. We do support Fraser Health and how they're trying to help us, but it seems to be that Adrian Dix and the ministry are setting the direction, which, as everyone has said, this will not work for rural areas in the province. It just won't work. So we need some help, and I've also have put a call into my MLA, and so that's where I think we should start. So,
great.
As Director Popov said, we'll keep you informed, because right now it's an awful mess. They're not ready.
Sure sounds like a lot of interest in this item. Thank you for that clarification, Director Rob, with Fraser Health's role in it. I'm sure Larry and Brent, who are on the line and frantically taking notes as they're listening to us speak here, are going to be thankful that you pointed out that it's not their fault. Director Engar.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my daughter's a pharmacist and daughter-in-law, and they evidently won't be participating in the rollouts, but of the vaccination rollouts. But there will be larger areas, as I understand it, here in Chilliwack. But yeah, I'm probably the last person to know, so I can't speak too intelligently about it. But I have heard that the two vaccines that require the greatest amount of freezing, they're the logistic real challenge is getting those to the smaller communities. And that may be part of the issue. I don't want to make excuses for anyone, but from what I understand, that those things are really challenging to deal with. And so as the vaccines come along that don't require the same amount of refrigeration, I think there's a couple in the loop that may be able to change that scenario, but I'm all ears as well. And I'd like to be on the mailing list as information comes along. So please keep me in the loop. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Director Enger. And Director Raymond, I'm going to give you the last word on this. And I'm going to give you the last word because, as fascinating as this conversation is, it is not related to the Fraser Valley Regional District business at hand here. And I do need to get us into the closed meeting, which I believe you have a lot of business in the hospital side. So Director Raymond, for the last word.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to put out there that I look forward to working with the communities in the area and trying to resolve some of these issues and get some questions answered. It even becomes even more important when you look at the far rural areas such as mine, if we have to travel to Chilliwack to have these inoculations done. But yes, I look forward to working with the mayors from those communities and with Fraser Health and with the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Raymond. And Ms. Kinnaman, next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So item 16 is public question period for items relevant to the agenda.
Hi, I wanted to speak to Director Adamson.
Oh, sorry, Director Adamson. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought you're giving the last word on that subject.
You have a report from the board.
Yes,
Go
I do. I
ahead.
have from the Fraser Valley Regional Library.
Yep.
So in January, they've seen their highest physical checkouts since the opening of the doors in August 4th. They averaged 10,600 checkouts a day in books, DVDs, and other physical material, well over 1,000 per day. The previous highest week, November, 1,000 more than the previous highest week in November. They also had 24,000 views in the virtual stories line and programs, and more than 300 views of the virtual programs since they launched in April 2020. They also just started their third year on a project they started back in 2018. It's Open Minds Enabling Dreams. They've reached out to the community and did a lot of research, and they're firmly away on their project. They also launched this year's version of popular program, 1,000 Stories Before Kindergarten. This program supports parents reading to their preschool children and supports strong early literacy development. And next week is Freedom, or maybe it's this week because I got this last week. Freedom to Read Week, an annual event that encourages Canadians to think about and reform their commitments to intelligent freedom. Which is guaranteed under the Charter of Right and Freedom. The Fraser Valley Regional Libraries have curated a list of Canadian authors whose books have faced challenge from individuals and groups over the years. Some of the most respected books in literacy have faced bans or suppression. For example, the most banned book of all times is To Kill a Mockingbird, classic. That's it. Talk to you next month. Thanks.
And thank you, Director Adamson. You win the award for the FERD related committee report and during board director reports for FERD. Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So item 16 is public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We invited the public to submit their comments via email or join us by telephone. Ms. Van Ness, did we receive any public submissions, or is anyone still on the line?
No, we did not receive any public submissions, but I do note that we do have one member of the public still on the line. Jennifer, if you wish to ask a question relevant to the items on the agenda, you may do so at this time. And it does not appear that Jennifer has a question for us, so we can move on.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is resolution to close the meeting, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Stobart. All in favor? Opposed if any, the item carries.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, if we could just take a 5-minute break so that we can get everyone